When Japan has bid a final farewell to former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in a state funeral, thousands of foreign dignitaries flew in to pay their last respects. However, like Abe's legacy, the people's opinions on the event have been divided, with protests against the state funeral going on for days. Michiyo Ishida tells us more.
Solemn, yet tranquil. It was Japan's first state funeral for a prime minister since 1967. Some 4,300 people attended the ceremony held at the Nippon Budokan Hall in central Tokyo, including 700 international guests. They were here to honor the late Shinzo Abe, Japan's longest-serving prime minister, who was credited for bolstering Japan's global stature and influence when he was in office. Mr. Abe's ashes were earlier carried into the hall by his widow, Akie Abe. During the ceremony, which lasted for 4 hours, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, as chair of the state funeral, presented his eulogy.
一体誰がこんな日が来ることを寸毫なりとも予知することができたでしょうか。安倍さん、あなたはまだまだ長く生きていてもらわなければならない人でした。日本と世界の行く末を示す羅針盤として、この先も10年、いや20年、力を尽くしてくださるものと、私は確信しておりました。
The passing of Mr. Abe in July shocked Japan and the world. He was gunned down during an election campaign rally by a man who harbored a grudge against the former leader for his alleged links with a controversial Unification Church. Former and current world leaders, including U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, were in Tokyo to pay their condolences. But Mr. Abe's state funeral proved to be divisive as he was in life. In front of the Dai building, people gathered to protest against the state funeral. These protesters said they were unhappy, citing the ballooning cost for the event, which is now estimated to cost more than $11 million. Alleged links that Mr. Abe and the ruling party had with the Unification Church, which was considered as a cult by many in Japan, also stoked public anger. Latest media polls showed most Japanese are against the state funeral for Mr. Abe. Still, thousands of members of the public showed up on Tuesday morning to offer their prayers and flowers in honor of the late leader. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's approval rating took a dive in recent weeks as public opinions turned sour over his decision to have the state funeral for Mr. Abe. Those who were against it had said the ruling party and its cabinet should foot the bill for the ceremony instead of taxpayers. A Mainichi Shimbun survey showed that the approval rating for his cabinet has dropped to as low as 29%. Michiyo Ishida, CNA, Tokyo.
Prior to the funeral, Prime Minister Kishida met with several diplomatic leaders, including his Australian and Indian counterparts. While offering his condolences, Anthony Albanese took the opportunity to praise the late Shinzo Abe's role in strengthening the Quad grouping, which includes Australia, the US, Japan and India. The leaders pledged to enhance cooperation on a number of levels.
安倍元総理の意思を継ぎ、自由で開かれたインド太平洋の実現に向け、日本とオーストラリアの連携をより一層進化させていきたいと思っております。
We share such common interests, in particular for a free and open Indo-Pacific, which is so important that we continue to work together and to work with our partners as well to advance that common interest.
During the meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Mr. Kishida said he hoped to work closely to further develop diplomatic achievements with India, and he commended Shinzo Abe for fostering the friendship.
भारत और जापान के संबंधों को नई ऊंचाई पर भी ले गए और बहुत क्षेत्रों में उसका विस्तार भी किया। और हमारी दोस्ती ने एक वैश्विक प्रभाव पैदा करने में भी बहुत बड़ी भूमिका निभाई, भारत और जापान की दोस्ती ने। और इन सब के लिए आज भारत की जनता आबे शान को बहुत याद करती है, जापान को बहुत याद करती है। भारत एक प्रकार से आबे शान को मिस कर रही है।
Mr. Kishida also met separately with European Council President Charles Michel and leaders from Singapore, Jordan and Papua New Guinea. He will be meeting other foreign dignitaries tomorrow, including South Korean Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen. The Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has paid tribute to former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. In a Facebook post, Mr. Lee said the late Mr. Abe was a close friend of Singapore who maintained close ties. Mr. Lee and his wife are in Tokyo to attend the state funeral for Mr. Abe. He offered his deepest condolences to Mrs. Aki Abe and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. During the visit to Japan, PM Lee also met with Mr. Kishida separately, the leaders reaffirming the long-standing ties between the two countries and discussed cooperation in fields of digitalization, sustainability and multilateral trade. It is the third in-person meeting for them in 5 months.